All right, so something a little bit different. This is the patch notes for the version 1.2.1 and a lot of the beta branch hotfixes that have been kicking off across the past week or so. A lot of people have been wondering, hey, where are the patches? Where are the patch notes? Is this just going to be the way it's going to be for a long time? What is the deal? Well, from what I've understood and the way that Callum, the community manager, has been communicating with people in the forum, is that they actually found out that there are still a lot of issues that came up with beta branch version 1.3. And on Friday, it was the equivalent of Labor Day in Turkey. So, or last Friday at least. So this did create some delay with the patch, and with there being so many issues, they're really taking their time in getting beta branch 1.3 up to a main branch. So I'm all for it, but I still think that a lot of these patch notes are huge. And I think that I wasn't going to cover this, but I think that a lot of you guys do need to see these things. Now that we're almost a week and a half into the beta branch hotfixes, let's go over those real quick. There's not going to be any footage from in-game because a lot of this has been happening throughout a lot of my playthroughs. So it's either been something I haven't personally noticed, or it's just been so seamlessly fixed that I haven't been able to display it for you guys, unfortunately. So a little bit different than my normal patch notes, but let's just dive in here because it's a pretty big set of them. So this is for the main branch, and this is the only portion that is for the main branch. The rest is all beta branch 1.3. So if you're on the current main branch, this is the only thing that's going to apply to you. And it's just simply fixing an issue that caused getting stuck in conversation after a barter and fixed a crash that occurred when no opponent anti-imperial kingdoms left during the initialization of the conspiracy phase of the main storyline. And the other part is multiplayer matchmaker. Now, here are the hotfix patch notes that have been occurring across last week and a half. So again, get ready. There's quite a bit here. So some of the bigger ones we're going to talk about and drill down on a little bit here. So influence gain per troop donated to an allied garrison, same kingdom, different clan, was decreased by 60%. So a lot of your influence gains are going to be gimped now in 1.3. A bug that caused besieged settlements to sally out, even though they were weaker than attackers, was fixed. So when you first started 1.3, you should have noticed that anytime you besieged something, they almost always sallied out because they were just not doing the right computation there. Some item consumption for Sumpter Horse boosts town prosperity. This effect was decreased by a factor of 10. +1 is now +0.1. So I guess from what I understand with this note is that prosperity was being artificially ramped up too quickly, because if you are the vassal or the owner of a kingdom, well, I guess owner is in loose terms here, you more often than not are helping to increase the prosperity of your towns just by association of you destroying bandits and protecting those towns by your own player capabilities. So this was actually creating a huge disparity in player vassaled towns and their prosperity, or other kingdoms that were kind of landsliding. So this has kind of been brought in check. Prosperity bonus of the aqueduct was halved. Again, same situation here. Starving effect of missing foods for the garrison was decreased. This is a big issue that was at the very beginning of the beta branch that has now been fixed. Fixed a number of bugs and crashes here. A lot of things with the, this is a really big one. Fix an issue with the AI retreating that caused performance problems in combat missions. Some people were saying, hey, I feel like I'm playing a slideshow when I play a lot of my combat missions. Well, it's because of this. Anytime the AI was retreating, it was a constant query on your CPU that was slowing your game down. The stationary villagers, parties, and caravans for new games. We will continue to work on existing save games. So basically, if you had villager parties and caravans that were just kind of stuck in one location, this should be fixed for new games. But it says it's not working right now on existing save games. I think that has now been fixed because I did experience it before and it's no longer an issue with me anymore. Let me see. Some minor adjustments in character creation. I don't know 100% what those are. Player kingdoms should no longer declare war without player action. That's a big one, and it follows up with this one very well. At least 25 days of truce time after peace. So people that were creating kingdoms were noticing that we're just getting landslides of war nonstop. So this should kind of create at least some form of pacing for your wars that are constantly being waged against you or kingdoms that you're a vassal of. Making peace costs is increased by 50% if there is a payment. Breaking into a besieged fortification costs lost men are reduced by 25%. So you're trying to break into a siege fortification, you now are going to incur 25% less lost men when you do so. Kingdoms which have lots of recent enemies want to make peace more to reduce their numbers of enemies. Similarly, they do not easily declare new wars when they already have 1 to 2 wars. So Sturgia, for example, they were the ones that were having like 4, 5, 6 people wars. This has now been curved back. They're only going to have 1, if not 2 wars. In my Aserai campaign, we had 2 wars. We settled off one of those ones pretty quickly, and we're now back to just having a war with 1 person. So the AI will try to jump to just 1 war, not try to have these 3 or 4 war fronts that are just going to destroy the AI. Sometimes peace was declared right after a war declaration. This should be much more rare now. Some people were noticing that it was just spammed nonstop. War, peace, war, peace, war, peace. Again, this is going to be fixing that. If one faction lost its strength in a big battle, several kingdoms were declaring war to that faction within a short period of time. This was improved a bit. War-peace declarations do not only use current strength, but also potential strength. Again, this was another thing with Sturgia, that for the same reason, they were getting these 4 or 5 person wars because of this thing right here. The militia number formulas were changed and they were increased by 50%. So again, you're going to deal with a lot of those lower strength countries or kingdoms are now going to be a little bit stronger with their towns, their cities, their towns, their castles, and so on and so forth. So it won't be as easy just to take them out in the early portions of the game. Fix an issue where a newly created character and other objects could get mixed up with each other. This created instability and possibly crashes. It was also responsible for broken companions and encyclopedia problems. This fix does not recover broken beta save games, but it should resolve the issue for new games. You can test this by checking if newly created characters or other objects have their own appropriate encyclopedia pages instead of another character's or object's pages. Now, an example of this would be if you jump into your tavern district, you notice the notables, and they would be a companion. You go to right click them, and it is not that notable. This has fixed that. It does say, though, that the fix does not recover broken beta save games. So I don't know if that means that if you are experiencing this in your beta game, that it will not recover. Or I'm sorry, that this fix will not be applied to it, or if something broke in your beta save game, this fix is not going to retroactively fix it. It's now broken forever. I don't know if that's the case, but you should always be backing your games up. Your save games. It's in the My Documents folder. Please, 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 please make sure you're doing that. Fix a rare crash that occurred when initializing the final phase of the main storyline for Imperial supporters. Again, this still doesn't fix our conspiracy issue, but it's a little bit of a step in the right direction. Fixed a crash that occurred when choosing the try to get away option in an encounter. Fixed a save and load related crash that occurred when entering the training field with a companion. Some lords were losing this is a big one. Some lords were losing all of their money and then starving. This was due to fortification taxes being too low. They have been increased by 25%. Also, NPC clan leaders now react faster to losing money and reduce their garrison sizes before going bankrupt. So if you have a Valandia campaign where Valandia all of a sudden is getting destroyed, this is because of it. So this should hopefully fix that. A pretty big nerf here is Council of Commons policy effect was 1 influence per notable in the settlement. It is now 0.1 influence per notable. Also, +1 militia effect per notable is removed. So, Council of Commons used to be a very strong and surefire way to get a lot of influence when you first create your kingdom. It is no longer the case. If you're going to need to get 10 notables in one city or castle with all of its adjoining villages in order to get 1 influence per day from this. So it's a pretty substantial nerf. Maybe, though, I would say that this probably actually brought it in line with the expectations of influence, because personally, on any of my campaigns where I'm a vassal, I've got a disgusting amount of influence. We're to the point where I'm like, well, what do I even need this for? I guess I'll just swing all the votes in my direction because I can. So I think this was a way to kind of bring influence back in line, just in the same way as above with this issue with the decreased amount of influence gain per troop donation. Again, this is, I think, a way to kind of balance out the extreme amount of influence that players are probably getting. There was no waiting time after captured lords were released. They were spawning at the next daily tick. Now they spawn at least 2 days later. So if you released a lord or he escaped from prison or was ransomed, they were spawning immediately. This should now fix that. I know a number of you guys were saying, don't ever release the lord. They're just going to spawn again with almost a full army. Well, here's another thing here. Lords spawn with 10% of their party size filled instead of 25%. So if you were releasing a lord, within the next day, they were spawning with a 25% health army. So now it's going to take at least 2 days and they're going to be at 10%. So should kind of curve things a little bit as far as minor clans, especially just getting way back in the fight too fast and keeping things at a bit of a stalemate. Owners now calculate their settlement's value more conservatively. If there wasn't any hostile action to their fiefs, their defense score grew significantly, and they would go directly there to help. This negatively affected all AI score calculation systems. Additionally, there were other mechanics using the value that they were also affected negatively. So hopefully this should again help out with trying to push the boundaries of all the kingdoms when they do go to war. There was a relation penalty if a settlement was lost between the owner of that settlement and their king. It was a settlement value divided by 20,000. Now it is square root value of settlement value divided by 100,000, nearly a 10x reduction. For example, for losing a castle with an estimated value of 600,000, the lost relation was 30 previously. Now it is 3. This was causing big relation drops when a settlement was lost, and which in turn caused clans to defect because of this loss in relation. So again, in the beginning of 1.3, if you notice, you were just dealing with a ton of defections from all of these kingdoms that were starting to just get beaten apart. Again, awesome example is Sturgia. This is now going to curve that. You're not going to deal or curve that. You're not going to be dealing with that huge 30 relation penalty for the NPCs getting just kicked in the face. Now, an influence penalty that has been added for if a settlement is lost, 25 for a castle, 50 for a town. So you do lose some penalty for losing those fiefs. Fixed a bug that prevented the player from receiving a relation benefit after helping a lord they had met previously, which is pretty cool because I always wonder, it's like they're always saying like, "Oh, thanks, you showed up in the nick of time." I'm like, well, I guess we're not any better friends for it, huh? Well, okay. Toodles. So that should hopefully start to come into effect if you relieve lords in situations after they've already met you, is what I'm getting from that note. Now, this is probably the biggest set to this patch notes, and I think it sounds a little bit, it sounds pretty scary. Cavalry advantage in simulations is reduced to 20% from 30%. So you're probably thinking, they just nerfed my cav. No, they didn't. They just made it so the AI's cav is not going to be destroying through the land. I think almost all my saves in the late game, Khuzait really starts to just go to town. I know my Asarai campaign that I'm streaming pretty regularly, the Khuzait just completely destroyed everything. We were outnumbering them, I think like 200 or 300 men in an army, and we still would lose hands down because of how the simulation was calculating those cavalry advantages against my poor, weak Asarai recruits. But still, this should help out quite a bit in bringing cavalry for the Khuzait a little bit more in line with the rest of the AI. Mercenary groups in taverns have increased in size 2x, and their average level has increased. So right now, if you were to go to a tavern, well, before this patch or hotfix, and go talk to a random mercenary and they would offer to join, they'd say, "Oh yeah, a friend of mine and I can join." It's like an exorbitant amount of money for like 2 dudes. I'm like, nah, hard pass. So now you're going to get 4 or 6 or 8, depending on the previous denomination, is now going to get that 2x multiplier in there. When a smelted item had a modifier, the wrong item could be removed from the inventory. It could also create instability in the inventory. This was fixed. So in total, I know these aren't a lot of patch notes, and there's nothing completely just crazy here. I think, again, this is probably one of the biggest things, and a lot of you guys were probably playing through your saves with Valandia or something of the sort, and you were broken from, where is the one I was looking at? Oh, the one where they're starving. Aha, here it is. This is a big one for Valandia. If you were playing a lot of Sturgian playthroughs, you should hopefully be able to kind of recover those Sturgian playthroughs because a lot of the way that kingdoms go to war has now been fixed. So hopefully this gave you a good idea of what's been happening the week and a half. It's not been that Tail Worlds is ignoring us. It's that they've actually been doling out a lot of hotfixes. And they said, Callum actually said on the forums that they didn't want to swarm us with too many hotfix patch notes because they felt like it would actually kind of eventually annoy us. But I'll be perfectly honest, I wish that they would swarm me with hotfix patch notes, because if it's like 4 or 5 little patch notes that I'm like, oh, okay, cool, now I get a better idea of what's going on in this beta branch, I'm all for it. I signed up for the beta. I want to see what's changing and what's getting better so that I know what more to test in the beta. I think that's a pretty huge thing, is a lot more transparency on these things. But We should hopefully find out more about a hopeful version 1.4 beta in the next couple of days here. They did say that this the issues with version 1.3 has delayed things quite a bit because there are so many issues, and they are trying to get that out soon, quote unquote. So I'm hoping for a version 1.4 beta branch or a 1.3 main branch by Friday or Saturday, if not Monday at the latest. But that's my own personal conjecture there. I don't know if that's true or not. We'll hopefully find out. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Hopefully this gives you a better idea of what's been going on with the version 1.3 beta branch, and you hopefully can start to jump back into some of your saves that were either really marred by performance issues or by a number of things that were going wrong in the game. As always, though, please make sure you leave a comment, like, all that kind of, subscribe, all that kind of action. Let me know what you're really experiencing in the beta branch that might be hindering or that you're really enjoying about the version 1.3. As always, though, have a good one and take care.